You know, it's funny. We spend our whole lives worried about what other people think, only to find out at the very end, most of them weren't even thinking about us. They were too busy wondering if we were judging them. It's a cosmic joke, and the punchline is your entire life. If you've made it to 70 and you're still worried about your neighbor's opinion on your front yard, you might have missed the entire point of aging. By now, you should have earned the right to say exactly what's on your mind. Wear pajamas to dinner, yell at squirrels, and skip funerals you don't feel like attending. Because here's the ugly truth. Half the people you're afraid of impressing, they'll forget your birthday faster than Amazon Prime delivers a tube of hemorrhoid cream. And the ones who still whisper about you behind your back, let them whisper. It's free advertising. Today, we're not just going to stop caring what people think. We're going to burn the whole people-pleasing system to the ground and dance barefoot in the ashes. Because when you finally give up the performance, you don't become invisible. You become dangerous. And wait till you hear how Trump, facing trials, scandals, and a media circus in 2024, turned haters into rocket fuel. It's so shameless, it's almost spiritual. Secret 1. Channeling boldness without apology. Not watered-down boldness. Not sorry to disturb you, but here's my tiny opinion boldness. I'm talking about wrecking ball through a fruit stand boldness. Take Donald Trump in 2024. The man's facing enough lawsuits to fill a bingo card. Criminal trials, civil suits, headlines calling him the most dangerous man alive. You know what he does? He walks into rallies with a grin so wide, it looks like he just got elected king of the moon. He brags about the indictments. He tells his supporters, "They're only after me because I have nothing left to hide. I'm the most honest man alive." The man could be sinking into quicksand, and he'd still be out there handing out business cards. And strangely enough, Buddhism would nod quietly behind the curtain. Because true boldness isn't arrogance. It's what happens when you realize there's no solid you to defend anymore. When you understand that the ego is just a costume, a passing cloud in a passing sky, suddenly you stop performing for the crowd. You simply walk. At 70, you've earned the right to drop the act. The hair's thinner, the joints are louder, the patience for nonsense is gone. And that's a blessing, not a burden. In elderly psychology, they call it liberation through loss. You lose speed, you lose smooth skin, you lose invitations to all the noisy parties, but you gain something far better. The chance to finally say what you mean without asking permission. At our age, every conversation could be our last. Why waste it whispering apologies into the void? I once met an 85-year-old woman who wore bright neon spandex to her granddaughter's wedding, not because she was trying to shock anyone, not because she was rebellious. She just didn't give a damn anymore. People whispered, judged, snickered behind their champagne glasses. Meanwhile, she was the only one dancing barefoot under the stars, laughing so hard she nearly broke her hip. Judgment didn't kill her joy. It fertilized it. Just like a lotus blooms from the mud, the deepest freedom often grows from the messiest places. Picture yourself in a bright orange jumpsuit. Everyone's staring. You have two choices: shrink into a corner, or moonwalk right through the crowd and wink at them as you pass. And if you think boldness is powerful, wait until you find out how politeness, the thing you were taught to worship, has been poisoning your soul for decades. Secret 2 is going to hurt a little, but it's the good kind of hurt. Secret 2, releasing the trap of politeness and false humility. Politeness, false humility. They sound so innocent, like two sweet old ladies baking cookies. But in real life, they're often the silent killers of your spirit. Most of us were trained from the time we could walk. Be polite. Say thank you even when you're seething. Smile at people who insult you, apologize for taking up space. And somewhere along the way, we mistook shrinking for virtue. Elderly psychology has a name for it: social self-preservation. The idea that if you just behave, nod, and blend in, you'll be safe. You'll belong. You won't die alone. But the truth? At 70 or 80, you realize none of it guaranteed anything. You could spend your whole life being nice and still get left behind when it matters most. Take Trump in 2024. You'd think after the lawsuits, the scandals, the mugshots, he'd finally do what they told him 30 years ago. Sit down. Be humble. Act proper. Nope. He treats the courthouse steps like a campaign rally. He treats accusations like campaign slogans. Politeness was never the path he chose. And while that's messy, chaotic, and sometimes absurd, there's something brutally honest about it too. Buddhism teaches that true humility isn't performative. It's not bowing and scraping for approval. It's knowing, deep in your bones, that your worth was never up for debate in the first place. You don't have to beg to exist. You don't have to shrink to be accepted. You are the sky, not the clouds fighting for space. Imagine a tiger pausing mid-hunt to ask the gazelle, "Excuse me, may I chase you now?" That's you. Every time you water yourself down for people who won't even remember your birthday. You didn't survive 7 decades just to spend your last glorious years asking permission to breathe. If you want peace, drop the act. Drop the need to seem sweet and harmless and small. The real you is bigger than any role you ever played. And speaking of roles, Secret 3 is where it gets real. Because if you want true freedom, you'll have to make peace with one ugly, beautiful truth. You will be disliked, and that might just be the best thing that ever happened to you. Secret 3. Making peace with being disliked. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one warned you about. If you live long enough, you're going to outgrow your audience. Some people will drift away. Some will resent you for changing. Some will simply dislike you for breathing differently than they do. And you know what? That's not a tragedy. That's your liberation. Trump figured this out a long time ago, and in 2024, he made it official. He faced the highest disapproval ratings in modern history, whole armies of people frothing at the mouth every time he opened Twitter. And what did he do? He didn't shrink. He didn't apologize. He turned their hatred into campaign banners. "If they're after me," he said, "it's because they're really after you. I'm just standing in the way." It's messy. It's ruthless. It's human nature with the mask ripped off. And strangely, Buddhism smiles at this too, but from a different angle. The Buddha taught that clinging to praise and fearing blame are two sides of the same suffering. If you depend on being liked, you live like a dog chasing scraps. If you accept being disliked, you live like a mountain, silent, unmovable, serene. In elderly psychology, it's called positive disengagement, the art of withdrawing energy from things that no longer nourish your soul. At 70, 80, 90, you don't need everyone's love. You don't even need most people's respect. You only need the quiet approval of your own heart. I met an old fisherman once who said it best. If half the town doesn't misunderstand you by the time you die, you played it way too safe. Think about that. Being disliked means you stopped performing. Being disliked means you started living. Picture a giant oak tree in a storm. Some people curse it for blocking their view. Some people thank it for giving them shade. And the oak tree, it just stands there, rooted, unbothered. That's your future. That's your strength. And speaking of standing strong, Secret 4 will show you the final, silent art. How to detach completely from judgment and watch the world spin without ever needing to spin with it. It's the deepest freedom there is. Secret 4. Finding spiritual detachment in external judgment. Here's the next secret most people never figure out. Other people's opinions of you are none of your business. Feels wrong at first, doesn't it? After all, we spent a lifetime adjusting ourselves like furniture, trying to fit the room. But eventually you realize you can be the ripest peach on the tree, and someone will still hate peaches. Look at Trump in 2024. During one of his trials, he got caught briefly nodding off at the defense table. The media pounced. Twitter exploded. Look at him, falling asleep during his own criminal trial. And what did Trump do? He laughed, brushed it off. Later, he joked to reporters, "Honestly, those hearings are boring. I've heard better bedtime stories." Now, you don't have to like the man. You don't even have to admire him. But you have to admit, that's some next-level detachment. And funny enough, that's what Buddhism has been teaching for 2,500 years. That the moment you stop believing every label slapped onto you, you step into freedom. You are not your reputation. You are not the gossip swirling around your name. You are not even the name itself. You are the space inside the name, vast, silent, untouched. In elderly psychology, this stage is called ego transcendence, when you finally realize no one's applause and no one's judgment can add or subtract a single ounce from who you are. Imagine this. You overhear people whispering about you. You smile inwardly, like a wise old monk, knowing their words are just leaves blowing across the road. No need to chase them. No need to correct them. Let them think what they want. Let the river run however it runs. You sit on the bank, drinking tea, watching it all float by. Because once you stop dancing to the world's music, you hear a quieter song, one that was playing inside you all along. And that brings us to Secret 5. Because when you finally stop caring about being liked, you unlock the most sacred, hilarious power of all. Laughing at your own reputation. Secret 5. Laughing at your own reputation. Now we get to the final secret. Maybe the most delicious one of all. Learn to laugh at your own reputation. That thing you spent decades building. The titles, the achievements, the good name. At the end, it's just confetti blowing down an empty street. You're not your resume. You're not your funeral speech waiting to happen. You're the space in between it all. Wild, messy, free. Look at Trump again in 2024. After being dragged through the mud by the media, after the mugshots, the indictments, the name-calling, what did he do? He posted a meme. Not just any meme. A cartoon of himself, muscle-bound and heroic, cape blowing in the wind. While half the world was busy calling him a disgrace, he was busy photoshopping himself into Superman. Now whether you find that hilarious, horrifying, or just plain insane, one thing's clear. The man isn't waiting for anyone's permission to enjoy the joke. Buddhism teaches that when you take yourself seriously, you suffer. When you see the cosmic comedy in it all, the rising and falling of your little character on the stage, you are free. In elderly psychology, it's called playful aging. The ability to greet life's absurdities, even your own decline, with humor instead of despair. Imagine putting all your gossip, your rumors, your embarrassing moments into a scrapbook. And instead of hiding it, you bring it to the family reunion, slap it on the table, and laugh harder than anyone else. That's real power. Because when you can laugh at yourself, no one can humiliate you. When you make yourself the joke, you take away the world's weapons. You become untouchable. In the end, the real spiritual masters aren't the ones sitting stiffly in temples. They're the ones giggling under their breath while the world takes itself way too seriously. And maybe, just maybe, the final enlightenment isn't a solemn march toward perfection. Maybe it's a clumsy, laughing stumble back to who you were all along. So here we are, 5 secrets later, and the real joke is, there was never anything wrong with you in the first place. It wasn't your job to be perfect. It wasn't your duty to be adored. It was never your purpose to fit neatly into anyone's idea of who you should be. If anything, the goal was always to become so completely yourself that you stop needing an audience at all. When you stop performing, the real show begins, inside. The Buddhists say, lose your face and find your true face, which is just a poetic way of saying, stop worrying about what the mirror says. The mirror was drunk anyway. In the end, the ones who judged you will forget you. The ones who loved you will forgive you. And the only one left to answer to is you. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. You don't even need closure. You just need the courage to laugh, to dance a little awkwardly, to wear the wrong outfit to the wrong party, and to walk off the stage of this life grinning like you knew the whole time it was all a beautiful, ridiculous dream. And you played your part perfectly, without apology, without regret, exactly as you were meant to.